Let's understand the JavaScript execution. Here we have front-end code execution like React.js, Next.js, and here we have React Native code execution. Then finally we have Node.js code execution. If you observe carefully, all these frameworks and libraries shares their common foundation as JavaScript. That means if you are able to understand the JavaScript execution, then you can easily understand the front end, back end, and the mobile application code execution. That's why, first of all, we need to understand the JavaScript execution as the foundation. As I said, foundation means foundation. Now, let's see the what are the engines these frameworks and the environments uses. So V8 engine is used by React.js from browser environment like Chrome. It varies according to the browser. Similarly, JavaScript core is used by Safari. Node.js environment also uses the V8 engine. If you think about the Hermes, it is used by Android React Native environment. Similarly, if you think about the React Native iOS, in their environment, JavaScript code is used. So, if you observe overall, like for the JavaScript execution, an engine is the main part, and in the runtime environment like browser and the Node.js environment or in Android and iOS, there are some other parts which are not listed here. We will see in the upcoming slides or the lectures. So what are these parts and what are the parts and phases in the engine itself? So if you know about the event loop and other spaces like event queues and the background processing in the browsers, if you also know about the web APIs and native APIs, and what are the parts belongs to JavaScript engine like V8 and what are the parts which does not belongs to this engine, let's see. As I said earlier, engine is the main component of JavaScript execution. So we call it core engine. Core engine is the one which has core components which are available in all the engines like V8, JSE, SpiderMonkey. So that core engine is mainly responsible for JavaScript execution. So first of all, we will understand what are the core components available in the core engine. Then later on we will understand what are other parts which are not the part of the core engine, that are outside the core engine. Now let's understand the spaces available in the core engine. So we have heap and we also have the stack. And we also have CPU cache. So heap is responsible for storing non-primitive data types like arrays and objects, specifically objects, large datas. And stack is responsible for storing primitive data types like small datas. CPU cache, this is the cache for loading to the registers so that browser can efficiently print it on the browser pages generally. Now we have other parts like garbage collector, that is responsible for continuously checking the heap and the stack. If any of the object reference is unreachable, then in that case, mark and sweep algorithm that will claim that space. It will free it up immediately. Then we have other parts like parsers generally. Then we have other parts like bytecode generation. Let me be clear here. I'm not telling the complete flow in this diagrams. I'm just telling the what are the parts available in the core engine. In the next slides or in the next lectures, I will give you the clear picture of everything so that you can understand. By this, you can just keep that terminologies in your mind. So let's see what are bytecode execution. First, let's see parsing, bytecode generation. So ignition is an interpreter that is used by V8 engine, that is bytecode generation. They have bytecode execution. We also have just-in-time compilation. Then we also have machine code execution. Then finally we have the browser or the console, the terminal. So these are the main parts of the core engine. I would suggest you to just remind these terminologies, then we will see the whole flow from loading a JavaScript file to printing it on the console or printing it on the browser. So you need to keep all these terminologies in your mind, like parsing, bytecode generation, then bytecode execution, then compilation, like just in time compilation, then we have machine code execution, finally rendering to the browser DOM, BOM, and the console. This is runtime environment, like browser runtime environment. As we have seen in the core engine, we have seen the core components and the terminologies and the pages generally. So here in this diagram, I am just keeping the main components like heap, call stack, and the garbage collector. And in this diagram, we will see what are the other parts and why do we need other parts in the runtime environment. Until now, we didn't discuss about the threading in JavaScript, as the JavaScript is single threaded. If the code is synchronous, then it would be easy for the single thread to execute it. Then, what if the code is not synchronous? Then we will be require other parts or other agencies which are not the part of the core engine. So that's why we need other parts in the runtime environment. So here we will discuss about these other parts. What are these other parts and why we need them? We need them for handling asynchronous operations. What are asynchronous operations? Asynchronous operations are like timers. Timers in JavaScript, network request, geolocations APIs, DOM events. So these are asynchronous operations. So we cannot handle these APIs on the single thread. So we need something or something from outside like web APIs, like native APIs. So these web APIs are responsible for offloading the asynchronous operations like set timeout. Whenever we call set timeout in JavaScript, then we offload them to the then we call the web APIs. Whenever we call the set timeout, then we are calling the web APIs, and then there are other parts in the runtime environments. These are event loop, these are micro task queue, and these are macro task queue, and there is background processing in the browser. So whenever we have asynchronous operations, then web APIs offload these asynchronous operations and do the processing in the background. Then these web APIs returns the callbacks which is associated with the set timeout, network request, promises, and all of this. Micro task queue, that queue is responsible for handling the callbacks which belongs like promise kind of callbacks, and macro task queue is responsible for the callbacks like set timeout, network request, and all. Here we have the event loop. Event loop continuously checks the call stack whether it is empty or not. If it is empty, then it will pick a frame or a message or a task from the micro task. As micro task is the first priority, micro task queue is the first priority, then we have macro task queue, that is the second priority. So it picks the task from the micro task or macro task queue, and then it push it to the call stack if it is empty. Call stack is responsible for executing your code. Generally, there is a phase in the core engine that we call JavaScript code execution, that is responsible for executing your code from the call stack. So finally, here is the cover up. By the end of this lecture series, you will understand almost everything about the JavaScript execution. So here are some points you will understand by the end of these lecture series, which I will create by week wise generally. So you will know like how V8 engine prints the output in your terminal, and how the V8 engine prints the output in your console in the Node.js environment in Node.js project. Similarly, in the React projects, also in the browser also. You will also get the clear picture of the how Hermes and JavaScript core engines execution happens in the Android and iOS environment. So finally you will also get to know like how event loops are used and why we need event loops and how they works, what is the use cases of event queues, stacks and heaps, and web apis and native apis, all of this. So if I said web apis, native apis, so let me be clear here. Native apis are the apis generally in your mobiles. If you have seen, the camera is there, gps location is there, hotspot, and all of these are apis generally. If you think about the web browser, there are apis are also there, like timers are also there in React Native. Same locations, dom, events, all of these are apis generally. So we will understand everything. I hope this introductory video will help you to get the clear picture of the agenda, because you will face lot of steps while executing a JavaScript program. Like when you run a command like Node.js, test.js, when you are running a JavaScript program, so all these phases happens immediately. All the phases like loading a file in the heap and then parsing it, and then JavaScript like bytecode generation, bytecode execution, machine code generation and executing, and finally printing on the browser or in the console in the terminal. So all these phases happens in the background. So I will try my best to give you a clear picture so that it can print on your mind, so that it won't create any more confusions. So this is it. Thank you guys for watching the video. Let's see you in the next lecture.